school bus stops and picks up the waiting children, transporting them to the school building. It's not a new process. The first state money for transporting pupils in Illinois was appropriated in 1938, more than 30 years ago. The school bus has taken on a new meaning, however. Once thought of as vehicles to collect students in a general area and deposit them at a central point, the school bus has become a vehicle of integration and has become a central issue in the black community's insistence on a quality education for their children. One of a long list of demands, including demands for black history courses, more black teachers, more black counselors, and for a greater voice in the educational processes. Often the battle has been carried on by the students themselves, who see their school experience as irrelevant to the society in which they must live. In Decatur, black high school students showed their dissatisfaction in the form of a school boycott. Their grievances and the grievances of other black students in central Illinois is the subject of This Bus Stops. First stop, Decatur, Illinois.
On Monday, November the 25th, 1968, black students walked out of Decatur's 4 public high schools. During that time, and since that time, the student walkout has caused a lot of controversy in this community. We have some people here today who were involved in that walkout. Incidentally, 2 days after the black students walked out, several hundred white students also walked out, some making their own demands and some walking out in favor and support of the demands made by the black students. I'd like to ask Kenny Eccles, who was a student leader during that student walkout, what were some of the demands made at Stephen Decatur High School?
At the time of the walkout, I was a student at Stephen Decatur High School, and I think that the major grievance that we had at Stephen Decatur High School was that the black students weren't treated the same as the white students were, and that they had designated places where we were supposed to be at, while the white students were allowed to roam the building as they pleased. And some of the teachers were very unfair towards black students.
What about Lakeview, Joe?
Well, our main concern was history. Well, nothing out there would go right, such as, during, like they always teach you about Abraham Lincoln and all those people, but we never learned anything about what our people did, things like that. So we asked them if they would get some black teachers to teach us something about what our people did, and it hasn't been accomplished yet.
We wanted to have some more black counselors because we felt that the other white counselors weren't giving us the same advantages and telling us about the things at college that would help us. A lot of them were just telling us to get our high school education and then go work at some factory or something. And then we wanted some black teachers to help to give us, the black children, something to look up to teach us about black history also. Because we felt that white teachers weren't that well acquainted with black history so they could teach it well enough.
I was deeply moved concerning the boycott at that time. I didn't think, though, the boycott should have taken place right then. I thought that some of these demands should have been made known. But on the other hand, I realized that the students did not have a channel of communication. And being deeply moved, I sat down and wrote up a 5-point recommendation during that time, which was on Sunday during that weekend. And several of these points have been submitted to the Board of Education, which have been accepted. One of those recommendations that were written up was concerning the forming of human relations committees within secondary schools, which would give the students a channel to take their problem to the highest level if possible. And also, a recommendation was written up concerning the recruiting of more black teachers, because I feel that if we do have black teachers, and if it is necessary for black teachers to teach black history, if you have enough, then you can place any teachers in the area in which they are best suited or which would best serve the purpose of the students within this school.
When I first heard about the boycott, I was in favor of it. I think that it was long overdue. Some of the grievances were good, and On the other hand, some of them weren't so good. Among the better grievances, I thought that they were justified in asking for black history in our curriculum here in Decatur. I thought they were also justified in asking for more black cooks in our cafeterias here. But on the other hand, I thought that grievances such as a black flag, black deaths, I thought these were a little on the ridiculous side.
I was very impressed, and I was pleased to see that Black Decatur was unified in their boycott effort at the student level and at the parental level. And I think that a lot of their grievances were legitimate. And while my impression of the Decatur Board of Education or the Decatur school system is that I feel that it's very inadequate at the social level, while academically it may be superior or average. But an important part of education, in my mind, is also social orientation. And in Decatur, they have very few people they can emulate. And there are very few blacks who encourage them to go on to college in ways that, through experience. That is to say, there are very few blacks in Decatur who, once they go to college, who come back to the community to inspire the younger blacks.
Basically, being from Gary, Indiana, and the product of an integrated school, Gary Edison, I found in Decatur that the overall view of the larger city as compared to a smaller city like Decatur, that it's just not together. Basically, we had a togetherness that was forced upon us, not from the fact that we had to live together, but the fact that we were living together. And I think it's the same as in Chicago, New York, or any other large urban city. And comparing to comment on the boycott itself, as far as being together as opposed to not being together, I don't think that the boycott itself overall in Decatur was, because of two statements you made. One was the fact that the blacks went out one day and the whites went out the next. This is not really, as compared to the big cities, a boycott. This is just it's a reaction, an impulsive reaction, say, basically black and white.
Stephanie, how about going off into how much planning you did before you even actually held the boycott?
Well, at first we had one meeting when we had about 30 kids come down to the Soul Center CAFIA, and we talked about whether we thought we should walk out or not. And the general consensus was we didn't have enough children to know the feelings. So we got it and said, let's go through the grapevine, and everybody called somebody, and they had their friends call somebody and meet down there Sunday. Then we had about 100 and some odd children come down, and we voted on whether we should walk out or not. And so you see, we did, and we felt that we had enough students backing us so we could really pull this thing out.
I feel that it was together because from the beginning we had planned for it to be a black thing. And we had said if you can find out are your white friends really with you, the ones that will come, bring them. And the black students that didn't want to come out, we hadn't planned on forcing them. If they wanted to stay, that was their business. I feel that it was together.
I think the black students in Decatur were together, and it very well could have served to test the white students. And I think that it showed an autonomy on their part because they had the numbers. They had some 716 black students turn out with them, and there aren't that many black students in Decatur anyway. And percentage-wise, you can compare any city in the nation where black kids boycotted and it was not nearly as solid or unified.
I think the reason why many of the black parents and black adults weren't, that they didn't know anything about it was because many of them wouldn't have understood. My mother for one, well, she understood the problem, but one of the best things that we've accomplished from the walkout is that the black community is aware that there is a problem in the Decatur school administration, and that maybe next time if another problem arises, that they will be with us.
I say if we had took it to the student council, they would just would have probably ignored it, or say we had took it to other black adults, they probably would have ignored it. Like, certain people, they would say, well, you better stay on in school and get your education and stuff like that. Well, Lava
I'm not
understood
worried
us.
about the quality of education.
Yeah. Well, see, Lava understood us, so we all decided that we better take our problem to someone that did understand us, because someone that don't understand you just can't help it.
I felt one of the main reasons why some of the white children walked out of school was because they wanted long hair and wear mini dresses and to be able to wear beards and come to school any way they wanted. I really didn't think this had anything to do with why the black children walked out, because their things were more important, because they wanted black history and some things that would really mean something to them that would help them in their education than having your hair long.
We've all been talking about what precipitated, what caused the boycott and some of the demands that were made. Since that time, there's been a lot of things happening. One thing in particular was the establishment of human relations commissions made up of students and teachers advisors in the schools. Joe, you're on that commission. Are they doing anything? Are we gaining anything?
Well, since I'm chairman on it, and they're trying to accomplish things, but yet all we're doing is talking. We're just talking. We still haven't accomplished really anything. I mean, they haven't got any teachers, any black teachers, or they haven't got any black history books or nothing like that. Well, at Lakeview, we got one set of books, and it's about 3 books up there in the whole library about black history. So really, I don't think anything has been accomplished through the boycott as far as black history is concerned.
Now, we must realize that this is the first time in Decatur history that human relations committees have been set up. So we're sort of playing it by ear, and we hope through these committees, if there are any problems that arise, that they could be solved at the lowest possible level, which would be within that school. And of course, if they are not solved there, they can move on through to what is known as a central human relations committee if the problem involves schools, or if they involve secondary schools, then of course secondary students, which are represented on this committee, can work on those problems. Then the problem can go as far as the Board of Education, if need be.
Now, Jake, I'm going to stick my neck out, because I think what you're saying to me is a classic illustration of the reason why they established those do-nothing human relations commissions anyhow, so they could put another stopgap measure to blacks. They said, well, look, we can't stop this boycott because it's already in progress. Here's what we'll do. We're not really worried with solving the problem. As long as we keep people talking, we ain't doing nothing about the problem. Now, I realize I'm stepping on your toe, but here you're talking about where you start with your Human Relations Commission in your school. If that don't get it, then you go to the central one. If that don't get it, then you go to the board. And all that is stopgap measures, and say the problem was sending the blacks to the cafeteria, Kenny. You're not solving the problem.
Well, I think here's the thing that you're overlooking. On these human relations committees, you have equal representation of students. You have the same number of black students as you have white students. And the black students supposed to be as effective or as powerful as a white student. Now, if a black student or white student see something that exists, should be changed or something, then they should make it known to these committees. On the other hand, we should realize how the formation of the committees came about, and we want the committees to work in harmony.
I think equality and harmony and all that is fine. But the thing is that when a kid has a complaint, he wants it settled. He doesn't care whether there's enmity in the group or what have you. And if the group can't solve what the kid is saying, well then, what is it for? I think when you talk about Human Relations Committee and somebody is saying on one hand, what we want is more black history books and black professors. That does not deal in the realm of kids talking about human relations. That deals directly with the Board of Education supplying the schools with these materials.
If a complaint comes to the committee and the committee feels that it is legitimate, and of course the school hasn't done anything about it and the problem moves on up the channel, then that perhaps would be the time to boycott or something, or to take some other definite measures in order to solve the problem.
I feel that the reason why the problem is not being solved when it first goes to the Human Relations Committee and then to the Central Committee and on up is because that some of the people in the committee to begin with aren't qualified to be in there.
Some of the blacks or the whites, Kenny?
some of the blacks and the whites. The whites that aren't qualified to be in there, I feel some of them are racist, and the blacks that are in there that I don't feel are qualified at times, as I consider them as a time. Some of them that are in the Human Relations Committee didn't even participate in the walkout, and they're inclined to just agree instead of argue the issue.
I'd like to ask one question. Who selected these people to serve on these committees?
Well, the way I understood it, the black students
Voted for blacks.
voted for black, but I don't know who counted them.
Now, Joe, you're shaking your head. What's up?
No, out at Lakeview, didn't nobody vote. Mr. Stevens picked them. The black counselor out there picked them. He picked the four black and 4 white, and then we elected the other one.
The committees were set up where that the black students could select or elect their black student who they wanted to represent them. And this is the way that it should have been even at Lakeview, and of course it's the way it was not done at Lakeview. So we wanted to get equal representation of all white students. And this is, as far as I'm concerned, this is where the student council hasn't done, because it has had a representation of maybe the upper crust of the students, and the students on the lower level have been omitted or forgotten.
Well, I think this is just
And these
what...
are the one that you really have to take care of, because the others will take care of themselves.
Okay, you're talking about the upper crust of white students on the student council. This is that old hand-picking your house niggas from the blacks.
Right.
You want to pick on these Human Relations Commission, you got black students on there that you know are not going to rock the boat. You got the ones who could make it for themselves anyhow, and the kid who's probably got to be a dropout, who is your problem, he really ain't got no representation. He ain't got no representation nowhere. You don't want Kenny Eccles on there because Kenny gonna tell you like it is. So what do? They kind of squeeze Kenny out and they put Stephanie on there because she's a little more mild-mannered and she's not gonna. And I think that's why America, not only just the schools in Decatur, that's why America is gonna blow up one of these days, because ain't nobody dealing with the problem.
I've noticed a couple of things that have been the result of this boycott, and well, they are, first of all, the attitude in the children, then secondly, there has been a change on the administrative level. As far as the attitude of these children is concerned, it's unbelievable the way these kids have suddenly become proud of their race. They've suddenly become proud that they're black and that they are a member of the black race. On the administrative level, there have been a couple of changes. First of all, they've included not a whole lot, but some supplementary material to the textbooks that we're already using. And they have assured us that there will be new history books coming out this fall, that they will be in effect this fall, ready for use.
Leo, one thing I'd like to point out, and that's that you're referring to these changes in students and staff on the elementary school level.
On the elementary level.
Now, one thing about Durfee, you teach at Durfee Elementary School. What's the percentage of blacks there? Do you remember? 68, 72, something like that, right?
I'm not sure, but I am sure it is over 50%.
It's very,
68.
very high.
I would say roughly between 60 and 70%.
And you have noticed these two distinct changes in students and administrators.
Yeah, and you know, it's a funny thing. Somehow it makes me feel really proud to see these little children, you know, take a hold of ideas like this, something that, well, you wouldn't even think that they came to school with things like this on their mind. But you can tell that they have been listening to their parents and that they are aware of what is going on around them.
Now, you notice this in your
Yes.
classroom, that is, you see this in your classroom, that is the behavior of the pupils that seem to have a self-image now, or more of an identity. Well, I know I was talking to some white student teachers that I know of from Milliken, who are student teaching in the elementary schools in Decatur. And during Black History Week, it was remarkable how many black kids do not have a sense of identity, who do not have a sense of, who do not have an image. And they still slink under their desk, you know. So, you know, when you talk about 29 black teachers, I think maybe 29 black teachers, when they're teaching in their classrooms, see this behavior. But for all those other black kids who are going through these elementary schools who have white teachers, I'd be willing to bet you that even though they sing "I'm Black and I'm Proud" and "Black is Beautiful," still slink under their desk when you talk about those two little paragraphs in Negro history.
This gets right back into one of the major demands that all of the schools, not only in Decatur, black students made the demands of more black teachers, but all over the country. This is a demand that's in every black manifesto paper written, whether it be from elementary school level up to college level.
What's happening now in Decatur as far as an institution to bring in, say, teachers and students themselves together? Is there, I heard something recently about I think it was a busing.
Mel, you were talking about the CCI, which is the Community Commission on Integration. This was a cross-section of laymen in the community, from doctors, lawyers, poor blacks, poor whites, who were given a charge by the Board of Education to work out a plan to further integrate on a racial and socio-economic level, all of the schools, elementary and upper grades. What is happening now, the central issue has been focused around the term busing. The whites have organized into a group called USA, United School Action Committee, and they're picking out all these little emotional things like a 6-year-old child is too small to be bused. And Jake, you know, we were getting to that thing before. You were saying that you didn't like the term busing.
Joy, no, I don't like the term busing because to me, busing means just the movement of bodies without any real reason behind it. So I think a more appropriate term would probably be transporting a student, because this could mean that there is a definite educational plan behind this which would help all students.
Well, how are things at Lakeview, Joe? Which was, they never had any black students out there. Now you've got, what, 19 blacks out there? This is what everybody's worrying about, racial conflict within the school. How are you 19 blacks treated at Lakeview? What do you think of being isolated out there away from your other black brothers?
Well, I mean, being isolated out there, it's really nothing good, because it's not enough for us to really mean anything at the school. It seems though everything that happens out there, you know, it's happened, the white people have it, and then they every time you get in something, you get kicked out for some reason or another. So really, I don't think it's too good being away from all the ones at Stephen Decatur.
That's 19 out of how many students? The total enrollment, do you know that? Or
Either 800 or 900, I think there are.
How have you been treated out there, Steph? What do you think of?
Well, I'm a magnet student out at Lakeview, and I'm bused out, transported out there because I thought that they have an independent study program that I'm in Latin, and I felt that I couldn't get this opportunity out at my other school. So this is one reason that I'm out here.
I was transferred to Lakeview because of difficulties that I had at Stephen Decatur High School, and I feel that it's a real nice program, other than, well, like me, I've had problems, and they feel that I should be obliged to them because they say it's a privilege for me to be there since from all the trouble that I've been in, and they just constantly pound that into your head. And I guess they suppose that I'm supposed to kiss their tail, you know.
Kitty, I can say one thing. Mr. Hoffman, the principal at Lakeview, feels as if that you have definite leadership capabilities. And I agree with him. You know, of course, that's no secret. I think you are a leader of your constituents.
That's the
but they want you to be obligated to them, because this is the thing that he's trying to, Kenny, you're out here, now you can really do good. And what, you resent that?
Well, something I'd like to know is, do these schools get money, federal money, as a result of having magnet students? That is, Title I funding and this kind of thing. Are these, any of these funds that they receive from the federal government a direct result of having the magnet program?
It's a direct result of having a magnet program, but it's not based on integration. Now, something we should point out in all fairness to Lakeview, they've had this magnet independent study team teaching in operation for approximately 4 years, and they've gotten national attention, and they're still receiving national attention. This is one reason why I, as a member of Task Force 3 on the CCI, went along with the majority of trying to attract black students out there, because I thought it was a beautiful, educationally sound program.
Racial isolation results in lower achievement levels, lower aspirations, and poor self-images for black pupils, and increases the likelihood of blacks dropping out of high school, according to a statement released by the Champaign Community Unit 4 Board of Education in 1967. To bring Unit 4 schools into racial balance, in 1968, it began to transport pupils from one school area to another. In general, this meant transporting black pupils to predominantly white schools. However, the reverse was true at Washington School, a predominantly black school. Here, a model elementary school was created. The white pupils at Kenwood School in southwest Champaign volunteered, as did other pupils, to attend Washington School.
This is Science Activity 29, Experimenting with Air.
However, racial tensions, mostly in the higher grades of both school systems in the Twin City area, contributed to the formation of the Concerned Citizens Committee to look into the grievances of the young black people. Its preliminary investigation found that the black students were underachieving, and the committee set out to find out why. Why, it asked, for example, should Washington School be considered a poor school when all black and one of the best when integrated?
Assuming that it was the case that in the past graduates of the Washington School scored lower than graduates of other elementary schools in Unit 4 on various achievement tests, I think that situation will change because we have changed the mix of student body in each of the elementary schools. But I think more important than that is the kind of change that's going to take place, I hope, in the expectations of all teachers. I think it is a common problem to find teachers who expect lower achievement from black children than they are actually capable of. And we do have to take steps to change these expectations. There have been some interesting experiments conducted on the West Coast where investigators told teachers in advance that certain ones of their children were going to become academic bloomers. And in point of fact, there was no evidence to substantiate this. But what actually happened was that those children whom the teachers knew were going to be academic bloomers did in fact bloom academically. So there is a lot to be said about the expectations of teachers with respect to the achievement of children.
I object to it being said as one of the poorest schools in the district because this has never been a feeling of mine. And I think if we can say it's one of the better schools in the district now, it certainly is our plan that we have of integration, which is a motivational factor for some of our children. It stimulates them to want to do more and to do more. I think it can be attributed to the help that we have. I think it can be attributed to the different kinds of materials and things that we have. And it gives us a chance to work with different materials and techniques and so forth, and to try to find those that are most effective in working with children. And it is the purpose of our school that when we find these materials and techniques, that they will eventually be placed in some of the other schools too, not just Washington School. This is a testing ground for materials for all schools in the district.
Besides the fact that we got a black-white integration, we also found out, I don't know whether this was anticipated consciously, but we also got an integration among white neighborhoods that otherwise would not have been integrated. That is, the white children found other whites in other neighborhoods that they did not suspect before. There's something about the whole business that was an adventure.
We usually have no trouble with first graders as far as the Negro and white are getting along. The children always enjoy each other. They find a friend, whether it's a Negro or a white child, and they usually continue with this friendship through the first grade. Maybe after leaving first grade, then they start picking up things. But as far as integration, I've had no problems in first grade. Not serious, I'd say.
At the opposite end of Champaign is Kenwood Elementary School. Here, most of the students bussed in are black children from the poorest area of northeast Champaign. How has this worked out?
Well, I feel that busing is a good thing for the school and for all the children. The children that live here, as well as the children that are bused in. Perhaps some of these children have never known black children before, and they are sitting in class with them and playing with them and finding out that they are children just as they are. I think there is a big advantage for the children that are being bused in. They are not, they have a low opinion of themselves. And the most important thing for a child to learn is to have a good self-concept. And most of these children do not have a good self-concept. Of course, we have children here that do not have a good self-concept too. In order that children learn and do well in school, they must think that they are able to do that. And then the teacher's expectation is very important. If the teacher doesn't expect much from children, she won't get much. We had several children last fall that were 2 years beyond where they should have been in age. For instance, we had 11-year-olds in 4th grade. I didn't think this was good. We had the psychologist test these children and found that they were able to do 5th grade work. So they were put in to the 5th grade, and with some reservation, talking to these children and their parents and asking them, would they be willing to work hard if they had some extra help and try to do the next grade. And they were very enthusiastic about it, and they did, and they have done well. Every child that we have put ahead has proved that they are able to do it. It is hard for a middle-class teacher to understand all children. Her life is quite different than the child that comes from a home where they don't have food, clothing, and the parents aren't there. But Champaign has done a good job in trying to educate their teachers. We've had workshops last summer. We had workshops the year before, trying to get teachers ready for this. We do have 3 people that come in to help. They work with some of these children in reading, and one boy was quite unhappy, and this mother took up the ukulele and taught him ukulele. And he sings with it, and he does very well. Perhaps one of the most important things for all children is to develop their bodies physically. They must have music and art. Many people will not ever do much with science and math, but they certainly will listen to music or use music all their life, and art also.
Based on the fact that children in the low-income level of our population often start school far behind their peers and are more apt to drop out of school, a program called Head Start was instituted in Champaign County in 1965.
In Head Start, you have a number of adults who work with the child at his level, not where we feel that he comes into the school and he should be here. So this is what we are doing. We're going to read now, and this is what everyone is going to do. In Head Start, we don't have that. The child comes in and we take him where he is and go from there. We give them number concepts. We try to develop their number concepts, their coordination, use of their fingers, and some of the games, some of the puzzles that they use are developed for that purpose, to develop coordination. If a child happens to be in Head Start program and he doesn't feel like this morning he wants to read, he wants to play with the puzzles, he's allowed to do that. He doesn't want to do anything, he's allowed to sit down and not to do anything. I think the training of teachers will have to be changed because most teachers do not have a background in the different cultures of the children that they have in their classroom. For example, teachers don't know anything about the black culture or other low economic groups of children. So it's not fair for them to expect one thing of the child, and because of his background, because of his culture, that is not possible for him to attain. I think our teachers should know, or in the early grades should have more psychology, so they know how to meet and deal with people in the low economic groups.
I think we should treat kids, disadvantaged as well as advantaged, and to develop all kinds of interests among them, not just the intellectual interests. There may be a kid who comes from a background where there was very little stress on verbal fluency. Now that kid shouldn't be knocked on the head when he comes in here with remedial reading, so forth. There should be other avenues where he can express himself. Sure, we shouldn't neglect remedial reading, he needs that. But he should feel that there's something worthwhile for him going on in that school. Perhaps a music program, perhaps a physical education program, perhaps a manual arts program.
One of the basic complaints the black community voices concerns itself with teacher attitudes. There are racist teachers. There are teachers who are unable to understand and cope with black children. There is too much emphasis on the corrosive effects of environment and not enough emphasis on the school system's responsibility to provide an adequate education. These grievances have been voiced in demands for more black history, more black teachers, and for programs aimed at changing teacher attitudes.
I think this has been attempted through a series of human relation workshops that we ourselves have had in our school system before the integration plan was put into effect. But I think attitude is something that is very difficult for you to measure. How do you know a teacher's attitude? And will a teacher really express their true attitude? Now, if I were to comment on the attitudes of teachers in Washington, I would say the very fact that they volunteered to come here, they were not assigned here, they volunteered to come here, would give me the idea that they had a very wholesome attitude toward the program and also toward the children whom they would be teaching.
I know of one particular case out of many where a teacher was to receive a student teacher, and the student teacher arrived, and it was a black student teacher, and he left running out of the class to the office with tears in his eyes, yelling at the principal, "I thought I told you not to send any niggers to me." I feel that any teacher that has this kind of feeling towards black people shouldn't be in the school system at all, because we're sent to school to be taught how to get along with other people and to cope with any situation.
One particular case in Decatur involved a 6th grade teacher at Oakland Elementary School. The way we did it, we found out that the teacher had made derogatory racial statements. We investigated, we took it to the school board, we attacked it directly, and we got rid of the teacher. That's one teacher. A perfect illustration of what can be done is what the students in Cairo, Illinois did. The Black Students Association in the high school there, they drafted a list of teachers that they thought were racist and that showed bigoted attitudes. They paid for an ad in the paper and they published it with names, addresses, phone numbers, and incidents that they felt denoted racism. That's one sure way to fight it.
I've heard of cases of prejudice and discrimination, but it hasn't been anything that I could put my finger on. It has been quite sullen, and therefore, I feel in order for me to put my finger on something, I really have to have concrete evidence on this. Of course, the association, Decatur Educational Association, want their teachers to behave in the right way at all times. They want them to be professionals, as they should be. And if they hear of situations, I have concrete evidence that a situation like this exists, they will look into the situation and do something about the situation as far as transferring whatever the case may be necessary to carry it on. But usually when I get it, it's through the grapevine, and you can't rely on all the time what you heard. You have to have something concrete when you is involved in something of this nature.
This gets right back into one of the major demands, more black teachers. 4 people from the school system are going to make a recruitment trip of 7 black schools in southern cities. Jake Harris is one of the people that's going to make that trip. And Jake, maybe you could give us some background on that and what schools are going to be visited.
Well, first of all, I'd like to say we are not discrediting the universities in Illinois. Of course, we do have black students in the universities and in Illinois, but the number is small. And in order to have a large number to choose from, I felt personally that going to the South, where you have many black students in education, because naturally, at one time, this was the only thing that they could go into, was education and get a job. So I felt that it was imperative that a team go to Mississippi to do concrete recruiting and not just catch somebody when they're passing through Decatur. If you really want to show and prove to the people of this community, prove to the students, all students, black and white, then you're going to have to do something concrete to get black teachers. And on the other hand, I would also like to add that I think black teachers, black administrators, counselors, or what have you, are very necessary even in all white schools, if it make no difference where it is, because you should give all students, let all students know that black people can be in decision-making processes, and let them know that all human beings can attain certain goals. And I think this is very necessary to be known by the white as well as the black.
Now, Jake, you gave your own personal reasons of why you felt as if we should go to black schools to recruit black teachers. You felt because of abundance. I've got my own little theory on why white administrators want to go to black schools in the South to recruit. Because they realize, when I say they, I'm talking about white administrators, realize that when they go down south and get somebody who's shackled ankles and wrists, then when they come up here, you've cut their wrists loose, but their ankles are still shackled, and they're more than likely not going to rock the boat. Well, see, we got enough, and I use this term very infrequently in the public. We got enough times in Decatur, so I don't appreciate the idea of white administrators, no personal affront to you, but I don't appreciate the fact that white administrators are going down south trying to find some humble thank you a la niggas, when you could go right to northern schools, state-supported schools who are also teacher educational institutions, and you could get the kind of black teachers, not Negro.
I was on a recruiting trip back in February for the Banner school system. And I went throughout the South, visiting a number of the most prominent black colleges and universities. I visited Tennessee State, Fisk, Arkansas A&M, Lane College, Atlanta U, Morris Brown, Morehouse, Clark, Spelman. I was up at North Carolina College in Durham, Shaw University in Raleigh, in North Carolina, and Elizabeth City State College in Elizabeth City, North Carolina, and Howard University. There is a great shortage of black teachers on the market. Number one, I found throughout the South that there were industries from all over the country just sponging up black students, even those with a BS degree in education, which makes it very difficult because the Urbana school system, as well as any school system, cannot compete with the bargaining price that industry has for black students. For instance, I was up at Howard University when I looked at the booking catalog, this was back in February, and they were booked from February to June with 600 companies coming into the school. Again, you can see the competition with school systems and industries. And talking with a number of the students, I must have interviewed between 65 and 70 students. And talking with the students, I came up with the conclusion that the problem was that the black man is now looking at teaching as a secondary thing. It's no longer the ultimate goal for the black man, which it was 5 or 10 years ago.
That was Henry Mears, assistant principal of Urbana Junior High School. Recruitment of more black teachers is one demand. Another demand is the employment of indigenous workers, residents of the black ghetto, to advise teachers and to help teachers in understanding their black pupils.
A lay person can solve all of the problems in the elementary school or the secondary school. But I believe that the lay person has the potential to work with children, has the potential to work with the teacher, to administrator, that he can begin to understand, to interpret, and to communicate with the children in these basic areas. The problem here in America in relating with indigenous people is that the professional class have not learned to accept the indigenous person as an equal partner and begin to rely on both expertise, the expertise of himself and the expertise of the indigenous person to solve problems, until the professional class seeks to subjugate people, subjugate the layman, subjugate the parent, until they say the parent has something to give, and apply whatever the parent has to give. In dealing with elementary and secondary educational problems, the indigenous person within the school will not be able to solve problems.
Now, then again, that takes us back to the kind of counseling that the school system has once had. I gather in the past that the kind of counseling we have been doing is really vocational type counseling. One thing I would like to see in the counseling program throughout the Twin City, that is that counselors become more and more orientated to the kind of problems that are occurring over in the North End. The kind of problems that are occurring among not only the black kid, but the kind of problems that are occurring among the lower class white kids. I don't think they are aware of some of those problems.
Well, there's one basic problem. I think there are 13 counselors and full-time and part-time, I'm not quite sure of the number, for the total population of the secondary schools in Unit 4. There are not enough counselors. The Concerned Citizens Committee and myself, we view the counselor as that person in between the student and in between the teacher. And until the counselor has the attitude to understand the child's problems, until he has the attitude to understand the teacher and her problems, is that he will not be able to counsel the child in the direct directions to go. It's our contention that children that are being led into dead-end courses are being led there by counselors. It's our contention that teachers with basic attitudes that confer with the attitude of the child, that confer with what the child needs, I think that teacher is assisted through the counselor's efforts. This is why the first workshop of the Concerned Citizens Committee will be with the counseling staff of both school districts. It's imperative, we believe, that we begin to change the counselors' attitudes, and that counselors begin to understand the attitudes of the poor man, in this case the black man, until he has a working knowledge of our children, a working knowledge of our parent, until he understands what we need and what America is asking of all children. As in the areas of education, he will not be able to assist the child, nor will he be able to assist the teacher. So it's our contention that where there are counselors in the school district, at this particular time they're ineffective.
I doubt very seriously if many counselors in the twin school systems have been over into the North End, been over into the black ghetto, the lower class white ghetto, to really become aware, to really gain some insight, to really go down to the root of the source. Why is it that this kid produces like he does? Why is it that this kid is an underachiever? What can we do with him? Have more relationship with the parent to gain some insight on what kind of program can we create to help this kid. What things do we need to do to give this kid a shot of motivation? Where do we start? And there hasn't been that kind of communication, I don't think.
Dead end to me means that for years, the elementary and the secondary schools of Champaign and Urbana, and I would contend in America, has not been training black children to go on to college or to take their rightful place in the vocations of this country. Dead-end classes are classes in which have no future. It's my contention that most of the schools in Champaign and Urbana, most of the schools in the state, which these classes are given to black kids simply because America is not willing at this time to give the black man a future in education. And until a parent is working with the educational district, until they're working with the school teacher, understanding the meaning of the classes, is that most of the black children, most poor children, will be getting dead-end classes. Now, classes that I consider to be dead-end are the occupational classes, in which a child goes to school a half a day and he works the remainder of the day. Now, this is a class to me that will give the child no future, simply because I don't understand the logic of allowing a child to go to school in the morning only to get English or only to get U.S. history and allowing him to work in the afternoon. What happens to the chemistry? What happens to the algebra? What happens to the other necessity curriculums to assist the child in going off to college? These curriculums are not given to the child because he's not in the building all day. And so this is something that we have to question, the dead-end classes. We have to question the procedure in which the schools are putting our clears, are, I think, pointing to us and telling us, this is the way your child should go as far as the curriculum is concerned. And the result of that is a dead-end class. That's the whole process, you know, and one of the problems that we have here in Champaign and Urbana is that the layman, the black layman, is not aware of what education is. And the schools are not making it their business to inform the community of the responsibilities of education, responsibilities as they are represented in the average everyday life of a black man in Champaign County, or as they might be represented in the future of America. And until the schools begin to stand up and tell the parent his responsibilities as far as being a parent, their responsibility as being the educator, is that we're always going to have the dead-end class. We're always going to have the problem child.
We as educators say that the environment has a lot to do with the students' performance, has a lot to do with the students' attitude. If this is true, then why not go to the root of the environment? Let's do more and more search in the environment. And again, I think we can get a great deal of information that we have been missing out on. We can, as I stated, we can have some insight on why the one particular child is acting this way. Why is it? You know, it's sort of a touching thing with me. When I look at a child, to me, there is no such thing as a born loser. You know, I don't want to look at a child as a born loser. And I think any true educator, if he is an educator, he shouldn't look at a child as a born loser. Every human individual has potentials. Now, it is up to the educators to tap it. Now, if that individual's potentials have not been tapped, then we have failed as educators.
Upward Bound is a federally financed program which attempts to recover students with college potential through special education classes and is under the auspices of the Office of Economic Opportunities and is open to low-income families.
The program tends to be about 80% Negro. I wouldn't class it as a black program. The reason the students are in the program is because they have brain power, not black power.
One of the grievances most often heard from the black community is that teacher attitudes prevent black children from learning. We asked James Clayton, has this been Upward Bound's experience?
I think certainly teacher attitudes are part of the problem. One of the problems, though, is that we have created in our society a system in which poor students, specifically black students, but poor students in general, the curriculum of the high schools are not geared around that. Most of our instruction and curriculum was devised around the assumption that students wanted to attend school and that school was a meaningful part of the student's life. Now, for many of our students, school has never been meaningful. It's a place to go because it's kind of compulsory miseducation. And specifically for the black students, I would say, especially in this community, there are very few teachers. First of all, there are very few black teachers in Unit 4, especially at the secondary level. So therefore, when the black student gets into high school in Champaign, he's usually taught by teachers who have no experience really in teaching black students until they've gotten to that level. And if you have a high dropout rate, many of the students haven't had any experience in teaching black students. But even more important, in the college prep classes in the high school, I think that's the place where teachers really have practically no experience in black students, because if you go into the local public school systems, you'll find that there are very few black students in the college prep classes. You go into fourth-year German classes, fourth-year French, you don't see any black students. You go into the higher mathematics classes, you don't see any black students. And what we're concerned with is getting black students, specifically really all of our students, into college prep classes, because we know that they have the potential to achieve there.
You know, one of the key words in education, I'm quite sure you have heard this, is relevancy. And in order to become good educators and good teachers now, with the change in times, we have to have relevancy as a part of educators. We have to learn to adopt, again, this key word as teachers and as educators. We have to learn to get down off of the high horse of the status quo goals in education and reach down into the ghetto communities, reach down to the little black kid, the little ghetto white kid, the so-called lower class white, and make our program more and more flexible. Until we do that, to where we can sop these kids up, we aren't getting anywhere. And this again, in order to do this, there is a lack of understanding between the teacher. There's a lack of between the teacher and the black ghetto kid, the teacher, and the lower class white kid. And now, if that understanding is not there, then we aren't getting anywhere at all in education. And in order to do this, I like to see more and more, and it is a desperate need, more and more of teacher in-service training, more and more teacher workshops, because they don't have the understanding, and I think this is where we're getting to.
The Concerned Citizens Committee has proposed to Unit 4 and to Unit 116 sensitivity programs, workshops that exist in Northeast Champaign, bringing the teacher more closer to the child, bringing the teacher more closer to the area in which the child comes from. Sensitivity programs are good, simply because over a period of time, it allows the person to express any sentiment or any attitude that he might have towards another human being. Until there is this personal assessment of oneself, until there is this recognition of fellow human beings and this sense of democracy that all people are equal, then we cannot begin to work with other people. We cannot begin to see that I have a problem. And sensitivity programs allows the person this avenue for self-assessment. It allows the person to begin to recognize as fellow human beings. And I think it begins to establish that sense of democracy that is needed among men. Now, the question would be, will all of these 700 and some odd teachers in Unit 4, will they agree to attend a workshop in the community? Will these teachers agree to sit down in a sensitivity program? I think this is the question. I think there are a lot of things that are available, not only here in Champaign-Urbana, but there are a lot of things that are available in America, in which teachers and the layman can do collectively that will begin to solve some of the problems as far as racism inwardly within the schools or racism out in the community. And this is a problem within itself. There is, in some cases, the inability of the black man to understand his role, and particularly the young black kid, where the kid is trying to formulate an attitude of militancy, where a kid is trying to be, quote, a revolutionary, where he's trying to understand his responsibilities as a young black man. He does not have the expertise, nor are we providing the type of information for him that would allow him to perform and to discipline himself as a revolutionary. And so his immediate reaction is to attack the school teacher, to attack the child next to him. And by attacking this child, he's saying that he's black. This is a problem that we have to contend with. This is a problem that young black men as myself, young black men who are standing up and saying that there's an obligation as far as all black people in understanding their responsibilities, understanding the future in which the black society of America can bring not only to this country but to the world, is that we are not providing this information in such that we are disciplining our children within the school systems. Because we are there to learn. We are there to acquire a tool that we can come back, we can assist the black man in building a nation.
I think one of the significant things that you can note about Upward Bound is, first of all, the racial issue. You have a situation which is about 80% black. We found that white students in Upward Bound exhibit the same characteristics that black students do in the predominantly white school. The dropout rate is higher among the white students who enter Upward Bound. Their attitudes are, they're very slovenly, they don't take part in class, they're very hard to motivate. I think this is some indication of what's happening to the black student in the predominantly white school. The school environment, the classroom environment, is alien to him, and he tends to react as an alien would be. He turns off in that traditional classroom environment. Now, what we've learned from initially seeing this happen is that within Upward Bound, we have to make sure that we meet the needs of all of our students. We don't create the same problems that the high school creates for the black students. So we're actively involved in making sure that we treat the classroom as a classroom, not the fact that we have white students in the classroom and black students, but we have students who have common needs or they wouldn't be in the program. They have common backgrounds or they wouldn't be in the program. And based upon those common needs and common backgrounds, we start to attack the academic problems. Now, Upward Bound exists, it's a year-round program. Every Saturday, the students come for 3 hours. They have English, math, psychology, and speech, and on one Saturday of the month, they have science in the education building at the U of I. In terms of some kind of monetary benefit for them, during the summer, the students get $10 a week. It's called a stipend, and it's for any minor expenditure they have. During the year, they get $15 a month. We hope that this will compensate for some Saturday jobs because most of these students would need money, and we figure they're taking their Saturdays off, so if they come to Outward Bound, we can give them some kind of compensation by this $15 stipend they get per month. During the summer, though, the program is quite different. It's much more intensive. They still have the same English, math, speech, science in the mornings, but in the afternoons, they have a choice of electives. This summer, the electives are going to be drama and photography. Last summer, they had drama, art, music. We found that offering too many electives tends to kind of disseminate all of your students, and it's very difficult to find out where all of your students are. This summer, we're limiting it to 2 electives.
We took some of our reasoning from the University of Illinois 500 program. The Concerned Citizens Committee assisted the university in recruiting the children from Northeast Champaign and assisted the College of Missions in getting our children in to the University of Illinois. It's our contention that Unit 4 schools, which is the Champaign schools, and Unit 116, the Atlanta schools, are not college preparatory, are not college preparing our children. We feel that the Special Service Division of both school systems are not adequate to relate to our children. A lot of the courses and even the dead-end classes that you mentioned are not classes which would allow our children to take the opportunities that the 500 program is presenting to our community. We believe that indigenous people in our community, as I stated before, do have a great deal of potential in working with our kids and in working with the professionals. So we've been pushing for the indigenous person to be hired into the schools. At this particular time, we're presenting to our community, we're presenting to both educational school districts a citywide tutorial program to assist our children. The logic behind this is that the black man must become self-sustaining in the areas of education. He must begin to acquire the expertise that not only he understands what education is, but he has the tools and understands these tools to teach and to assist his child.
How do high school students themselves view their educational experiences? 3 black youths from Northeast Champaign give their opinions. Steve Dorsey, a student at Champaign Central High School, Charles Davidson, a 9th grade dropout, and Terry Thompson, a student at Parkland Junior College.
What do you think, brother?
Well, I think this was my opinion. I say the black kids aren't getting a fair disciplinary at this, what the teachers wants to do. Like if a black cat's come to the office and they both been fighting, he'll put the black cat out first, then he'll talk to the white cat. Then he'll call the parents, and then he'll talk. Then the white boy, most likely he'll stay in school, unless it's something that's going to create a big disturbance that's going to cause the whole school to have trouble.
What do you think, brother?
I don't think they get no kind of fair representation.
They're not getting it at Parkland?
No.
When you was in school, Charlie, what happened? I know you got kicked out.
When I was in school, it was just the same as today. Like I got kicked out of school, the white cat didn't.
You got kicked out and he didn't?
Yeah.
And you both were fighting?
Yeah.
How did you get to fighting with the cat?
I was in the lunchroom. He was talking some kind of jive.
Do you cats get called niggas very much in school? You ever heard white kids call you niggas?
I heard it, but I don't know if they're talking to me or not.
Yeah. Is there very much discussion about black history? Malcolm X, Rap Brown, Stokely Carmichael?
No.
You hear that at Parkland?
Now it's coming up, but before all this kind of rules and all that rigmarole started, there wasn't any.
The same way at Central. They're going to have a black history course in the regular
school program.
Next year.
Do you think that the black history should be taught in the regular program, or it should be a special program?
It
What do you
should be
think?
taught.
It should be taught as a regular program.
Regular program, separate from the regular history.
You believe that too, huh?
I think it should be taught for black and white to attend it.
Yeah.
Therefore, as I say, it's white, so they can understand how black people are, because 99% of them don't know how to cope with a black person.
What kind of help do the teachers give you?
Well, some of them will give you help, but some of them, they won't pay no attention to you. They'll let you go on about your business, they'll go about theirs.
Yeah. There's not very much help being given to the brothers or even to the students after school?
Well, I wouldn't know what really to say about that, because if the teacher wanted to talk, help you, she'll ask you, why don't you stop in after school sometime, talk.
They ever ask you that?
Well, it's one teacher that asked me about something about next year, about getting more black kids interested in science classes.
Yeah.
And I told him I would talk to people about it. But when I talk to them, it seems like they don't want, they're not interested in science because they don't think that they could cope with a science classes, physical science, or like that. So they don't want to have nothing to do with it.
Yeah.
Just few of them that
Now,
want to do that.
Do you think there is a reason, and maybe you've touched upon something, you think that maybe because black kids are kind of frightened of the math classes, frightened of the science classes, and frightened of the physics classes, that this isn't the reason, that could be the reason that there are not a lot of brothers and sisters who are in college courses?
When you say frightened of it, you think?
Frightened of it because it's going to be too hard, that they might come out of the class with an F or with a D.
Yes, in a way that I think that's, reflecting on that they don't want to get in it.
Yeah.
Because if they want to get in something that they can at least make a C.
All right. So what is the schools? So is there very much talk going on in the schools about you need the physics class, you need the math class, you need the chemistry class?
No.
So the teachers let you make up your own mind?
Yeah.
Whatever you decide to go on, that's the way you'll go. How would you feel if the teacher would not let you make up your mind and she gave you the physics class?
Well, if it was a black cat, they don't like I don't like for people to force things on me. You know? I like to accept it willingly.
Yeah.
Instead of somebody trying to force this down my throat.
Yeah.
Well, I think if it's going by the school rules, if they want to go to school, they'll take it or leave it.
Yeah.
Or drop out.
Yeah.
So I would say they would go on and get in it.
What do you think about incidents where brothers are being attacked by white students or brothers are attacking white students, and things that have happened at the high schools in our community, and that even things that have happened at the university? How do you brothers feel about that?
I don't understand what you mean.
Are you in favor of brothers who are trying to get themselves together, understand who they are as black people, denying, will not talk to white people, when white people approach them, it starts a fight? Are you in favor of when we read the papers and find out that there's been a big fight at the high school? What do you think about that?
Well, I think so far, myself, where I cope myself is I can get along with anybody, black or white. Colorblind doesn't mean anything. but you base people on, white people are basically prejudiced as a whole. But like I said, I can get along with them. And like I said, I'm trying to get an education, and I'm not going to be up here fighting every time I turn around and get an education. But for one thing, if one of them comes to me and approach me in the wrong manner, I will fight.
So, now what do you think about the incident that happened at the high school where some teacher drew a pair of scissors on some brothers?
I think she should have been expelled, or she should have been suspended or something.
Yeah. What do you think, brother?
I think the same way.
You think the same way? Do you have any specific ideas about, you think fighting at the high school should go on between brothers and white students? You think it should be stopped, or what?
Well, it seems that they even asking the whites do their thing, and on the way they figure that the whites will listen if they take a,
To go to violence?
Yeah.
What do you think is the reason? You think that's the only reason that there's violence at the high school? Is because whites won't listen, and the only way to make a white man listen to you is you got to hit him upside the head?
That's the way it seems. It seems that way to me. I don't know about no one else.
Being that you're still in school, brother, and I assume there have been some incidents at your school. How do you view incidents?
Well, I have to go along with Ted. Only time that I'll fight somebody, I'm up there trying to get the education that they're trying to get me, the little that I am trying. Only time I will fight anyone is when somebody's gonna come to me and directly hit me or say something that's, they act like they're getting ready to swing on me. That's the only time that I will fight anybody. Other than that, I'm just walking down the hall. Everybody's my friend, as long as they don't bother me in no way.
Have you been kicked out of school this year for fighting?
No.
Look here, y'all believe in violence? I mean, like all brothers say, I can live with white folks as long as white folks ain't bothering me. In the school buildings, outside of the school building, regardless of where we at. Do you brothers believe in violence in the schools? Do you believe in violence in the community to get free, even if white folks ain't bothering you?
I believe in it. Because the only way that we will say that we are free is going to be by violence.
Yeah, you believe that?
Yeah.
What tells you that?
Well, over the past 100 years, they've been sitting there, picketing, asking this and asking that. But it's slow movement. If it continues to go like it is, we'll be dead and gone. The generation
Let me disagree with you. In the past, you read back to 700, 800 years. We were nowhere around then. That was our ancestors. But I feel like now that you're right,
we are getting
whenever it was. But, I quote like this: "It's going to be a change if it has to become violence, if it just sit down and be a change overnight." Now, I agree with you when you said about violence is the only way we're going to get it. It seems that way, but I also disagree in this respect that if white people hold us down to a set way to think that we're dogs, and every time you go in someplace, a restaurant or something, and they wonder why you're in there, they're calling you a dog. And this is why you said violence. I don't blame you. But it's their fault. They made us a dog. So we can overlook that. You guys feel like this. You're a little bit higher than that right now.
Yeah, we are moving up.
Violence,
it's slow.
if it resorts to a great big violence, it's going to set us back to those 500 or 600 years.
Where'd you go to elementary school at?
Washington.
You go to Washington school also?
Marquette.
You went to Marquette.
Washington.
You went to Washington. And as you know, these are neighborhood, and they were all segregated schools. Now Washington school is integrated. What did you think about Washington school when you went there? What do you think about it now?
What I think about it now?
Yeah, when you went there, because when you went there, I think that most of the teachers, all of the teachers were black, and all the kids there were black. You think Washington school, as an all-black school, neighborhood school, was preparing you to go over to Champaign High School?
No, I don't think so.
Why?
Because it seemed like the classes weren't preparing you that. It seemed like, Washington school and one of these schools out in the white district, the white kids were ahead of you, that all the people at Washington school. Because in Washington school, it seemed like all the people in class are together, slow ones and the fast ones.
Yeah.
Then they just teach you. And if you don't get it, You just don't have it.
You got a problem with that,
I
brother?
disagree with that.
What's the
I
matter?
think it's on the basis, I think Washington School is based on same levels of other elementary schools. It's just a mental thing, you know. You got to overcome it, and it's no different.
What kind of mental thing are you talking about?
Well, like he said, something of some sort about education out there in the white district getting more higher, and they're educated no better than a black person. That's just a mental thing. And so for us, when you get up in class and you're sitting with all this white, you think, well, I'm the dumbest thing in it. You're wrong.
Well,
There's
Dave,
a lot of dumb ones in
all
there.
right, well then, the Unit 4 school system did put out a report that the black kids in Washington School were 3 and 4 years behind the kid in the white school. How do you explain that?
I don't believe it.
You don't believe it?
I don't believe it. Because, I mean, like, in the day I was going to Washington School, 3 or 4 girls now have graduated from Champaign Central. We all went to school together, and I played Pee Wee football with like P. Elliott's son, Bruce Elliott's son, and he was going out there. And when we got to Champaign Central, sat in the same class, they knew no more than we did.
When I went to Marquette, everything was mellow. I went to Marquette, just like if I went over to Marquette, they don't just put you in a high grade.
Yeah.
The rest of these teachers, the schools now, they're passing with when you don't supposed to be in pass. See.
Say that again.
When at the end of the year.
Yeah.
They put on your report card, your son or your daughter been passed to a higher grade level, something like that. But back when we was going to Marquette School, when I was, you would have to earn your learning to get passed.
Yeah. Were there any white teachers at Marquette when you were going?
Yeah, most of them were white.
When were you going there? What year?
Well, let me see.
Was it 56?
Somewhere around there.
Yeah, like how did you do when you were in the West Marquette School?
I think I did good.
Well, how did you do in junior high?
I'll leave that up to you. I'm out of school now.
Well, how far did you go to school?
9th.
You went to 9th grade?
Yeah.
And are you thinking about going back? Have you looked into going to night school or anything?
Yeah, I had went to night school for about a month.
Why'd you drop out of night school?
I figured I wasn't learning nothing.
Huh?
The teachers there seem like they want you to teach them. They weren't teaching me nothing.
So you got up and did you tell this to the teachers?
I ain't told them nothing.
And we're talking about, does education have anything to give the black man? What I'm hearing from you brothers is that education's got something to give. You know, that it's not at all times giving what it should be giving to black people, but it does have something to give. Now, if this is true, that you brothers have said that the black man ain't gonna get free with a diploma, whether it be high school or whether it be college, but there is something that education can provide us, if it is the right type of education. So then I would be of the opinion that if I only had a 9th grade education, is that I would be trying to get back. And I would be of the opinion that the brothers and sisters who are in the high school would be out there in the community trying to get those brothers and sisters who have dropped out of school. And that you would be out there rapping to the brothers and sisters who you know who are talking about going out of school, you know, and trying to keep them in school. You know, what do you think about the 500 program?
I think it's nice.
You think it's a good program?
Wonderful.
Now, you know, of late there's been a lot of problems at the university, in the dorms and things like that, about the 500 program. What do you think about fighting going on in the dorms and things like this? By,
who were they fighting?
You know, there's been a lot of fights by members in the 500 program, plus the white students, you know.
Well, there's so many people out in the community, white, now. They say, well, here's 500 black people, you know, and they're treating them so wonderful, you know, giving them something. And every time a fight is broke, you know, every time a fight starts, they blame it on the 500 program. You see, the 500 program on the community, not knowing there's an air base on Chanute, and there's a lot of airmen come down here and start fights and are gone, and there's nothing said about them. But everything's on the 500 program. At first, I know right now in the community, there's 90-some% that don't go for this 500 program. But I feel like it's going to be left up to the younger generation, and the white out here on the university, being the kind of university it is, were not aware of black people at all. And this is the only way they're going to get aware of black people, this way.
Yeah. What do you think about the 500 program, brother?
It's mellow the way it's going now.
Have you met with any of the brothers and sisters out there?
Yeah.
How have y'all gotten along?
All right.
Yeah, how about you?
Okay.
Do you go out on university very much?
Well, when I say, well, I go out on the university, but it's not out to the dorms, any place like that. Union building, then I leave.
Yeah.
Like that.
Do you go out to any of the dorms and talk with and rap with the brothers and sisters?
Sometimes.
How about you, brother?
I'm out there all the time.
Do you ever get the opinion that, you know, well, I like to go to college when you're out there? Have you ever had that opinion?
Yeah, I wouldn't mind going out there.
You didn't mind going to school out there?
That's right.
You think you can get out there with a ninth grade education?
Nope.
Well, what's going to get you out there?
Only way I can figure get me out there is go back to school.
So, where are you going now? Like next week sometime, will you make up your mind about going back into school or what?
I don't know.
Is there anything in Parkland College for this brother?
There's a lot. You don't have to have a high school education to go to Parkland. There's some courses, they're not hard. They have a reading skills course that just teaches you to read. And that's a wonderful course. And you may say, well, I don't want to read. I read in the first and third grade. What do I want to read for now? But if you want to go on to college and want to do something, this reading skill course that helps you to read a page a whole lot different than I read before I had the skills course. And you don't have to do all this. $6.50 for ATC test. Now you can get $6 selling pop bottles.
All right. What do you brothers would like to see tomorrow in the education systems in Champaign and Urbana? Is there anything that you think you would like to see happen that will make education worthwhile, more worthwhile to the black man in our community?
I would like to see a lot more black people in the colleges of today. A lot more.
A lot more. What about you, brother?
Feel the same with him, including myself.
Yeah. Well, you know how to get there then.
Yeah, I'm here.
What about you, Brother Dorsey?
I agree with Ted about a lot more getting into the college and the dropouts that have dropped out get back in school.
Yeah. Well, I'd like to thank you brothers for coming.
The first black student graduated from the University of Illinois at the turn of the century. Enrollment of black students has been small since then. Assistant Dean of Student Personnel Clarence Shelley comments on why blacks do not enroll at the U of I.
The University of Illinois has, for a long time, suffered from a very poor reputation as far as black students in this state are concerned. That is, high school counselors have not always seen fit to send their best students here. And there are several reasons for that. The main reason is that the black students on this campus in their freshman year, at least, have had a higher attrition rate than white students. By attrition, now, I don't mean that they flunk out or that they leave because of academic reasons, but because they find themselves very uncomfortable here. And this discomfort, this sense of isolation, reflects itself in their academic performance. It has been difficult for black students to enjoy a full collegiate culture on this campus.
Last year, the University of Illinois recruited 500 black students. Why?
Yes, there are several reasons for this recruitment effort. And I'm not sure which is the most significant. I think that will be determined by to whom you talk. The university belongs to the people of the state of Illinois, and black people represent a reasonable proportion of the population of the state. Therefore, they ought to have access to the state's finest university. Another reason is the black students here have indicated that if they could somehow feel more at home here, if they could be more comfortable, if they could have a feeling of the kind of security that comes in seeing brothers and sisters on the campus at the same time that you are, the sense of security in numbers. And we are convinced that some of the academic fallout, the kind of alienation and isolation that black students suffer on this campus could be overcome by having larger numbers of black students on the campus. And of course, it's going to do a great deal, I think, for the white students as well.
Just how well were the black students from Champaign-Urbana prepared for college?
The students from Champaign-Urbana were probably a little bit less qualified academically than others. Many of them had been away from high school for longer than a semester, whereas most of the other students in the SEOP were generally fresh out of high school. The Champaign-Urbana students tended not to have met the pattern requirements, the units, as often as or as well as students from other high schools, but they have done much better than we anticipated. They've done very well this year. Most of the students who were admitted here last September had planned to go on, but they weren't sure. They weren't as sure of when or where. For instance, it isn't very well known in the university community that most of the students in this program had already been admitted to a university or a college of some kind somewhere else, and that the University of Illinois did not open up its munificent arms and drag in all these disadvantaged, displaced, impacted, poor black human beings off the streets and to rescue them. These were kids who had long ago decided to go to college. Many of them, for instance, had been accepted at universities and colleges in and around the country, but this is not common knowledge here. The students from Champaign-Urbana did much better than I and our staff thought they would have because of what we saw in the high school transcripts. I think they did better because living in Champaign-Urbana, they have a much firmer grip on how valuable this college education will be to them. Also, we've had some very good support from the Concerned Citizens group. We have been leaning on them. We've been watching them. They've been getting some support from the community, which some of the students from other places have not been getting. We're not so much concerned about how appreciative they are of any kind of a golden opportunity to be a part of the University of Illinois family. We're more concerned about how well they're going to be able to focus as much of their energy as possible on their coursework. Their adjustments haven't been as difficult because they have not been cut off from their home communities as some of the other students have been. I think those are the main reasons. They also have a great deal of drive.
What grade you in?
10th.
You're in 10th grade? You go to Champaign High School?
Yep.
Yeah? You going to school after? You going to college when you get out of high school?
I'm going to Furthermore.
Why?
Because I don't like school.
Why don't you like school?
I don't know.
You want to live in this here all your life?
No. But
How you going to get out of it without an education?
I don't know. But you got to go to college now. You
No,
doing
you don't.
something.
Well, you just told me that I don't want to go to college. Why don't you want to go to college?
I think school boring.
You think school is boring? Why is that? Because it's hard for you?
No. I don't know. I just don't like school.
Yeah. So how in the world are you going to get a better job?
I ain't saying getting in.
Well, how are you going to change? How are you going to change Northeast Champaign or help somebody change it if you don't have the sense to change it?
I don't know.
Where are you going to get the sense from? You don't get it out of school, right?
If I would go.
You don't go? Why ain't you in school today?
Because I don't like school.
Oh, it's a pretty good reason. It's a pretty good reason.